congregation, well, we have a Zoom staff meeting as a staff, and back when Mark was on staff, Shirley would always come and say hi, and we really loved that, and it was fun to have Shirley poke her head in, and it's always been fun when Emily's been able to also contribute to our staff meetings, whether or not she's wanted to, because she's in the same room, but she's added a lot of wisdom, especially when we're facing tricky situations. I just find her creative problem solving and just the way that her mind processes things to be really unique and valuable. And most of you don't see that work that happens, and some of that is very much unpaid labor, but today we're going to pay Emily for sharing with us, which I think is very good. Emily is a creative, an artist in so many different genres, photography, fine art, clothing, which is an art form, I think, dressing folks, and also works with Salel and Cedar, another congregation that we kind of consider a sister congregation. So Emily, thanks for saying yes when we asked for you to do this. And we're just really excited for what you've got for us. So Lindsay, if you could come and read for us. Is that still what you want before? Yeah, okay, great.
So this is Psalm 77 in its totality, I think. I cry aloud to God that he may hear me. In the day of my trouble, I seek the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out without wearying. My soul refuses to be comforted. I think of God and I moan. I meditate and my spirit faints. You keep my eyelids from closing. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I consider the days of old and I remember the years of long ago. I commune with my heart in the night. I meditate and search my spirit. Will the Lord spurn forever and never again be favorable? Has his steadfast love ceased forever? Are his promises at an end for all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his compassion? And I say, it is my grief that the right hand of the Most High has changed. I will call to mind the deeds of the Lord. I will remember your wonders of old. I will meditate on all your work and muse on your mighty deeds. Your way, O God, is holy. What God is so great as our God? You are the God who works wonders. You have displayed your might among the peoples. With your strong arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. When the waters saw you, O God, when the waters saw you, they were afraid. The very deep trembled, the clouds poured out water, the skies thundered, your arrows flashed on every side. The crash of your thunder was in the whirlwind, your lightnings lit up the world, the earth trembled and shook. Your way was through the sea, your path through the mighty waters, yet your footprints were unseen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. The word of the Lord.
Oh, that's bad. Here. Everybody else is back. Yeah. Okay.
Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has God, in anger, shut up his compassion? Relatable. In the initial moments of this text, we find the psalmist in distress, unable to sleep or speak from being so troubled. We don't know what troubles them exactly, but they are seeking something. They think of God, they think and remember, they commune with their own heart, meditate, search their spirit, and land in grief, imagining that maybe God has changed, is no longer gracious or compassionate. Have you had this experience? I have. And like the psalmist, I am seeking something too. The world is literally on fire. Fascism continues to rise. Capitalism is destroying our cities and pushing more and more marginalized people out of homes and neighborhoods. But I don't need to tell you that. You know, We all know. We read about it in the news, experience the smoke in the air and the sticker shock of the grocery bill, and feel the desperate relief of the headline when something vaguely non-shitty has happened. And we fight to survive, to do things that we don't care about but have to be done, to support the people next to us, to feed ourselves, to show up when we can, to be self-compassionate when we can't, to not let despair take over. But undergirding this chaos is a gap, a space between what we have known and what we have yet to know, a space between what has been and what will be. The relatively stable climate of the past is no more, and extreme weather increases. The concept of a good paying career that ends with retirement and a pension, no one I know my age or younger believes they will experience these things. Food chains are crashing, healthcare is breaking, billionaires get richer as our communities struggle. This rift between a known world and an unknowable future is where our lives meet that of this psalmist's. Has God forgotten to be gracious? Now, before you think I'm going to spend this whole time ramping up the anxiety, don't worry, I have a different point. The future feels scary in its unknowability, in our relative lack of individual control, which makes it easy to avoid looking at. What has been feels familiar and knowable, and to some extent I long for it. Summer days not tracking forest fires, social gatherings without COVID risk assessments, fireflies. Those were the days, right? But we can't stay there, and thinking we can go back is false comfort. The central question for me is, how can we have faith in and dream about a world and a future we know so little about? I want to turn towards this unknowable future with openness to possibility. And I want to be able to dream voraciously. I want a roadmap to find it again the next time I think maybe God has become angry enough to forget compassion. Because the current unpredictability of the world tells me that I'm likely to find myself here again. And so here I am, sketching out the landscape and offering the possibility of that roadmap. The psalmist here offers one piece of that. After the opening cries of pain and confusion, we get some images of God's mighty deeds. You are the God who works wonders. You have displayed your might among the peoples. And a poetic telling of Moses and Aaron leading the Israelites out of Egypt. When the waters saw you, O God, when the waters saw you, they were afraid. The very deep trembled. The clouds poured out water, the skies thundered. Your arrows flashed on every side. The crash of your thunder was in the whirlwind. Your lightnings lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way was through the sea, your path through the mighty waters, yet your footprints were unseen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. The psalm ends with these images without a named conclusion. Did the psalmist find what they were hoping for? How did their situation turn out? We don't get to know. I like to think that their mid-psalm turn towards remembering a story of God's compassion and protection was their way of keeping the fire going just a little bit longer. We can't know the future, yet we have enough here to keep us warm a little bit longer while we search and while we wait. So how can we have faith in and dream about a world and a future we know so little about? The psalmist helps with the faith part. For the dreaming and maybe some bolstering of the faith, there's another text I want to introduce into this conversation. It is a poem called Cascade Experiment by Alice Fulton, and the text is in your bulletin and will hopefully be up on the screen. The poem is somewhat dense with metaphor, and I encourage you to listen loosely and trust that the important parts will land. And then if you're interested, you can spend more time with the dense metaphors later. Cascade Experiment by Alice Fulton. Because faith creates its verification, and reaching you will be no harder than believing in a planet's call of plasma, or interacting with a comet in its perihelion passage. No harder than considering what sparking of the vacuum, cosmological impromptu flung me here. A paraphrase, perhaps, for some denser, more difficult being. A subsidiary instance, easier to grasp than the span I foreshadow, of which I am a variable. My stance is passional towards the universe and you. Because faith in facts can help create those facts, the way electrons exist only when they're measured, or shy people stand alone at parties, attract no one, then go home to feel more shy. I begin by supposing our attrition's no quicker than a star's. That like electrons, vanishing on one side of a wall and appearing on the other, without leaving any holes or being somewhere in between. The soul's decoupling is an oscillation so inward, nothing outward as the eye can see it. The childhood catechisms all had heaven, an excitation of mist. Grown, I thought a vacancy awaited me. Now I find myself discarding and enlarging both of these views, an infidel of amplitude. Because truths we don't suspect have a hard time making themselves felt, as when 13 species of whiptail lizards, composed entirely of females, stay undiscovered due to bias against such things existing. We have to meet the universe halfway. Nothing will unfold for us unless we move toward what looks to us like nothing. Faith is a cascade. The sky's high solid is anything but. The sun going under hasn't budged. And if death divests the self, it's the sole event in nature that's exactly what it seems. Because believing a thing's true can bring about that truth, and you might be the shy one, lizard or electron, known only through advances presuming your existence. Let my glance be passional toward the universe and you. We have to meet the universe halfway. Nothing will unfold for us unless we move toward what looks to us like nothing. This poem entered my life in a moment when my anxiety was high and my ability to imagine the future was low. I resented it greatly. You want me to go where? But that looks like nothing. How do I stop clinging to this that I have known without knowing what awaits me? All I can imagine is sharks in those waters. Well, we start with the faith, remembering times before, standing on the banks of a sea, fleeing, scared, with no way to cross. God's redemption in the past, and beginning to trust that our own Red Sea crossing is possible. When I start there, this poem helps me remember how to access my bravery. The bravery of dreaming and movement and expecting better. Not a world that's a little bit better than what is now. One with vast expanses of community abundance and celebration, of joyful work, of deeply rested friends, and a million genders as yet undiscovered. I can pause and I can sink in. Can you imagine? It makes my body remember how to stop spinning in circles, trying to manage the false urgency of the now and orient myself toward the next. It reminds me of a piece by feminist Melissa McEwen, in which she writes, "I'm not ironically detached, I'm not apathetic, I'm not resigned, and I'm not contemptuous of bleeding hearts. I am a greedy bitch with voracious expectations, and I dream long and lustfully of a better world that is both my muse and objective. I want it like the cracked earth of the desert wants rain, and I will neither apologize nor amend my desire because of its remove from the here and now. Its distance encourages my reach." Reaching, stretching toward what we don't know, what we have yet to discover. Believing our faith and our action will be met, and we will be discovered. like whiptail lizards. The world that is waiting contains joys I can't even imagine, ones that probably seem impossible or unbelievable. I presume that it exists and I am going. The gap is still here, of course, and it will remain here with us for now. In this space, in this meantime, I am inviting you to draw upon the faith that you've learned or borrowed or witnessed or hoped for or make up, and turn with me toward the unknowable future. Amen.